Hey, for Heart Shape Booty Day 11, I have two new exercises for you and a great stretch that we could do as your passive stretch during cool down. The two exercises today, we are not going to level up in terms of adding weights. The way that you're going to tier these up from your starter to moderate to step up tiers is simply by doing additional reps and then additional rounds as you please. These are burnout exercises, so they're going to be horrendously good. And then we are going to try to hold the last rep at its peak contraction position for 10 seconds. All right, so the first one is called the pretzel, and actually that's really, to me, not the best name for it, but I didn't name it. Here's what it looks like. Oh, we got helping us today. Excuse me, darling. You can lay right here. Go ahead. All right, so we don't need the blocks right now. Here's what the pretzel looks like. I'm working my right glute as I'm showing you. Okay, and then we'll talk through it. Now we have a 45-degree parallel leg placement here, as in relation to your torso. So your front leg is bent so that from knee to toe is 45 degrees. Your back leg from hip to knee is 45 degrees parallel. Here's the setup with the hands. We want to have both hands on the floor in front. So this is going to help us cue in two ways so that we're not falling over to the opposite side, okay, and having that hand lift off, okay? You want to have a slight tension pressing into the floor, and you also don't want to end up opening out either, okay? So your torso should be nice and tall so that you're still able to breathe well, but still engage your abs. Slight pressure into the floor, a slight bend, so you're going to have a slight angle, but straight from head to tailbone, and think about engaging through your glutes in order to make this movement happen. So pause at the top and come down. Pause at the top and come down, okay? Pause at the top and come down, and do all your reps on one side and then hold it at the top. Now with this one, if you also have differences because of this position, if you also have differences in your mobility and flexibility, especially through the hips on both sides, in addition to differences in strength of the glutes, you might feel additional differences, okay, as far as being able to get into the same position, but just follow the same cues. You want to be squared up, have your hands in front, and keep that, work the back glute by really just focusing on that, doing the contraction, okay? So we all have these tiny little biomechanical differences as well with our bodies, in addition to, of course, the length and height, of our limbs. So go ahead and do what you need to do to reposition yourself, but just make sure you're not falling off to the side or end up opening up like this, okay? So you want to try to keep square. So play with the lean, play with the pressure in your hands, and remember to pause at the top so you're not just letting that flop down, okay? So that's the first exercise, the pretzel. The second one, this one is, remember the Jane Fondas. I'm calling this the wall slider Fondas. So we're going to get a little bit closer to the wall, but not flush to the wall, okay? We are going to come to the side as before. You can go ahead and lay on your arm. What we want to do is, as we work the top leg here, okay, we want to have the top leg be able to touch the wall. So you'll adjust the distance from the wall. In order to kind of help you position that, you could place the bottom leg, position your body to where your bottom leg can be, your bottom foot could be flat against that wall, so that kind of gives you a base to go by, okay? And then this will have your leg have to extend behind you in order to touch that wall, and this is going to kick up the intensity here as you slide that foot up and down. Now notice that I'm wearing socks, so I'm able to slide. I'm going to suggest, if you have sneakers on, you could use one of these furniture sliders that you get for like a dozen in a package for really cheap. You could also use paper plates, fold up a tiny towel, or use the washcloth size towels to be able to slide. And of course, there's the actual exercise sliders, which I don't find any more effective than the options that I gave you. Sometimes too, especially in something like this where we're kind of putting more of the heel of the foot into the center of the slider versus needing space for a flat foot, it's actually nice to have a little bit of a lip to hang on to with the heel of your sneakers, okay? But like I said, I don't need it today because I have my socks against the wall. So here's a couple other things that you could play with here. I'm just going to put this here for my Princess of the Pea syndrome, just to be more comfortable. So you have the position of having found the wall with your bottom leg. The top hip is what we're working so that you're able to kick that back as you slide. Now what you could play around here with, okay, and of course you want to go as high as you can and feel that contraction. Well, we want to make sure that we're not rolling back just as before in order to do this. So you could use this hand as a base of support as well. But here's where you could also play around with this. You could slightly adjust the angle of your hip flexion. So if you want to bring that hip angled a little bit, or you could still bend your foot behind you. You could also slightly rotate inward, okay, or rotate your top or your chest towards the floor here. And you're gonna, again, because of all the biomechanical differences that we have, as well as the differences as we're trying to figure out how to engage the glutes, play around with that a little bit to see how and when you feel it the best in your glutes. Don't worry if you're feeling it in other areas of the leg. You should also be getting a nice, if you go down to where you feel a nice stretch here and you really engage your abs, you're going to get a bonus ab workout here as well. And then of course try to hold it at the top for 10 seconds and it feels horrendously good. Now this position here will also prevent you from kicking the heel up and rotating that ankle out, okay? You could also play around with letting the heel, your toes, sorry, play dead and hang downward, okay? So those are all the tiny little ways that you could adjust your body position slightly to get the maximum glute contraction for you. All right, those are the two exercises. Now we're going to do a great passive stretch, which I'm sure you've all done this before, but I want to make sure you know how to get it into the passive state. All right, so we have the supine, just laying on your back, supine hip twist. And I've moved further out from the wall because we want to have enough room to our sides to extend our arms, okay, out, so don't have the wall too close. Now what we're going to do here is, if I'm going to twist and stretch my right hip, okay, I'm going to bring this the right knee up, and then it's going to just fall to my left side, and we're going to look to the opposite side. But the problem with doing it this way is if you don't have enough hip flexibility to bring your knees all the way down without bringing your whole body with you, okay, while you're trying to keep your shoulders, both shoulders on the floor, then you end up sort of having more of an active stretch here. So in order to get your hips to relax passively, you could use yoga blocks or whatever you want to use, cushions, okay, pillows. So that now, as you do this, you can have support, okay, and your knee doesn't have to be hanging and fighting, and your knees could relax into it, and the stretch is staying in your hips versus going into your lower back. And this way too, you could also have your shoulders remain on the floor, your arms flat on the ground as you look. Keep this hand as a weight, okay, still on this knee to help pull that hip and let it relax. But look to the opposite side and hang here for a full minute at least, okay? So with this one, if you were to take away the hand or take away the yoga blocks, okay, what we don't want is to start feeling it in the lower back, okay? And what we don't want is for that other shoulder to start rolling off the ground, and we don't want it to be, I mean, it's okay this way, but we want to really get it passive. So we want to use the methods in which our body could just completely relax into it and still breathe. And that's usually the cue. If you stop breathing, you've gone too far, okay? If you're not able to breathe naturally. So just hold this, but having this arm here is a great way to use it as a weight, okay? I think I call it the hook and something method. I forget the own names that I give to certain things that I do. All right, so next exercise for the next post is actually going to be a benchmark test. So I'll see you in the next post.